I'd like to start out this broadcast by giving a big shout-out, a huge mahalo to KG7M. When I first started thinking about doing a shortwave broadcast radio show, I was in some online discussions going over the idea, and I wanted to have an intro of some Morse code. And when I brought that up, KG7M took it upon himself, went and, in no time at all, I had a couple recordings to choose from. And so I will be using those as my intro. I liked it so much that I close out each broadcast with it. So you'll be hearing those from a long time to come. So I wanted to give this huge, big thank you to KG7M. Thanks again. So now we'll start our first segment. During the premiere, I had mentioned that I was going to be breaking the program up into segments, and that I had hoped to have some guests during some of the segments, or have a guest come in and even take over a segment. So today is going to be a first on VOSR International. We are going to have a guest come in and take over a segment. Our guest uses a social media handle of Ancient Grass. And he'll be going over his foray into shortwave radio. He'll be talking about his radio room and his setup. And he'll also be talking about his shortwave radio collection. He's got quite an extensive collection that he's going to be going over. So without further ado, let's welcome Ancient Grass.
Hello. I'm honored to be a guest on the program. I live in Central New York. My username is AncientGrass5121 on Reddit. I'm also AncientGrass5121 on YouTube as well. I post a lot of videos regarding the shortwave hobby and a lot of videos of what I've received, DXing videos, interesting things I found, any anomalies I might find on shortwave. And trust me, there are a ton of anomalies on shortwave radio. A lot of them do have explanations, some of them don't. Some of them are people that create strange transmissions, whether that be like hobbyists, pirates, governments, anything like that, any kind of group or person or entity. And a lot of that stuff is super interesting to come across, because you have your broadcasters, which are also interesting to pick up. I've picked up a lot of interesting broadcasters in my time on shortwave radio, and there's also a lot of interesting pirates and things like that. So a lot of strange things on the HF bands. HF, another term for shortwave. Very interesting. And I have a lot of radio equipment that I've collected over the years. I would say that I started in shortwave as a teenager, and I've been off and on with it ever since. But recently, I just started getting back into it as of last year. I don't know why I stopped, but once I learned about, propagation, the science of radio, things like that, it became a lot more interesting to me. Not just, I'm going to listen to crazy stuff on the shortwave bands, like crazy people, but there's also a lot of interesting things that, you can pick up with radio that you wouldn't even think you could pick up. It wasn't until I got my Reddit account and I started browsing the shortwave subreddits where I found out that you can actually, with DLS, you can listen to what's known as Cosmic Chorus, which is the happens at dawn, and it's the natural sounds of the Earth's electromagnetic field, which is very interesting. I didn't know you could do that over radio. Also, NASA uses space telescopes where they can pick up the sounds from outer space. I always thought that was interesting. I knew that before I got back into shortwave radio, but all this kind of stuff that has to do with radio in general is very interesting. And a lot of the stuff that I've discovered after getting back into it in the past year or so, it's interesting to see like different types of digital modes, faxes, broadcasters, pirates, all of that is very interesting to me. I recently discovered slow scan TV. I think that's really, really cool. Also, I discovered weather facts. I didn't even know you could do that over radio. Very interesting. And things like that. All these utility stations, all of these beacons, to see how propagation works in general is very interesting. I have collected a lot of shortwave radios over the years. I have a Drake R8 communications receiver that I just got. Love it. It's a very beautiful radio, very sensitive, and I picked up a lot of stuff with this radio that I couldn't receive with my other radios. I have a few radios that are portable by Texan, a few desktop models by Grundig, Eton with the S350BL. I have a Yaesu FT890. That's a very beautiful radio. And all these radios have their pros and cons. And trust me, that's not even the beginning of the list, but we'll save that for a different time. But yeah, I mean, ever since I got back into this radio hobby, I found out that there are super cool things to listen to, not only just broadcasters, but all these other things that you can pick up. Radio's very useful. For people that are into it for emergency situations, like weather facts and all this kind of stuff, like HF Marine, if you're on a boat or something, things like that. You can pick up all these stations that could help you in situations where you might not have access to a phone, things like that. And the broadcasters, I found a lot of interesting broadcasts on shortwave, like the Voice of Turkey, Radio Romania, BBC. Still pick up the BBC. A lot of people say that shortwave's dead, but I've picked up a lot of good stuff on shortwave. Radio Exterior de España. Picked up Radio Thailand in English before. Very good. It only lasted for 30 minutes, but they do have a lot of programming out there if you are interested in learning about other countries, other cultures. I've also picked up in Australia. RNZ always comes in super strong. They have a lot of good programming, from news to music, and it's not just for New Zealand, it's for the entire world. So it's just like the BBC. In fact, they do have their own broadcast of the BBC. So that's pretty useful, in terms of not having access to the internet, which I know a lot of people say that everybody has access to the internet, but if you're out for a hike, if you're in an area that doesn't have very good reception, a shortwave radio can help you stay connected to the entire world. I've actually been in parts of the United States where there is no cell phone connection. There are really no radio stations except for medium wave and shortwave. Montana. But in that case, shortwave is a very useful tool, I would say. I would always carry a shortwave radio with you if you can. If you travel, if you spend a lot of time in nature, things like that. Hiking, camping, all that. Even if you're at home, it's a good tool to have. And it's fun, it's not just for the usefulness of it, it's also a fun thing to have. It's, I don't know about anyone else, but I find it very interesting to hear music from other countries, viewpoints of other parts of the world, big into international broadcasters, kind of Radio International. That's some good music, Radio Turkey, or the Voice of Turkey, I should say. There's a lot of good music. I've actually found myself pulling up some Turkish playlists at work, I mean, I don't know what they're saying, but the music sounds really nice. And yeah, things like that. And it's always interesting when you're just sitting at home and you're going through your various radios. You're just scanning around, and you can pick up things that you've never heard before. Like, you have your everyday stations that you always pick up. But when conditions are really good, there are a lot of interesting things that you would not hear on a day-to-day basis. Things from China, Europe. There's a lot of interesting stations out of Europe. Like Channel 292, Radio Veronica, and you can pick this stuff up just with the right antenna and the right radio. So for me, I use a 100-foot long wire that I created out of an extension cord, and I run it to my radio room, which is in the middle of the house, but I can still run it from the backyard to it, from a tree all the way to my radio room. And I pick up a lot of good stuff in the lower frequencies, all the way from long wave to the lower HF bands. And I also have an MLA 30 plus antenna, which works really nice. It reduces a lot of the noise. So even if you live in a noisy environment like a town or a city, and you experience a lot of noise from your neighbors, things like that, the MLA 30 helps cut down on a lot of that. I've noticed that, especially with the software-defined radio, the RTL SPR, if I use the long wire with that, I'm subject to a lot of noise. But if I use the MLA 30, you don't really experience that noise that you would with just another type of antenna. And I think a lot of that has to do with the directionality of it, and that really helps cut down that noise. It's not so great for the lower frequencies, unfortunately. It does work for them. I'm not going to say it's bad for that, but I mean, obviously a long wire would be great for the lower frequencies. But I would say, if you're using an MLA 30, it works as a super antenna, maybe 5 megahertz to, I don't know, maybe like 20 megahertz. Well, it still works pretty good even if you're listening to the waves. I've picked up, it works just like a normal ferrite bar antenna. That's very good.